COVID, which now looks like it was the virus was invented in a lab in Wuhan, which was funded by our government, meaning Dr. Fauci, which we went around regulations to do, and then lied to Congress about actually doing that. He lied twice when he was asked to be funded gain of function research in Wuhan lab, and he said no twice, which to me is lying, which is a crime to lie to. That's a felony. But of course, he'll never be punished because he's lying at the behest of the establishment. Remember, if you said that came from from the Wuhan lab, you were called a racist. So now it's like, wow, it's just, so you have to be extra suspicious now when someone says something's racist. It's like, oh, it sounds like there's probably true, right? Because that's what they're doing now. And we saw it happen with that. I mean, it's like, so whenever it's like, oh, when they overreact too much, like to the Barrington Declaration, right? So people, I don't know if they know what that is. The Barrington Declaration was at the beginning of COVID. There was a bunch of scientists, Nobel laureates, stuff like that, who had a different idea on how to handle this pandemic, right? And their idea was to not do lockdowns, but to do targeted protection for people who had comorbidities and who were elderly. Turns out they were right. Well, Fauci couldn't have that because they had a plan in place to make sure everybody in the world got a jab. And so Pfizer can make $100 billion. And $100 billion is a lot of money, right? So they smeared everybody in the Barrington Declaration. And that's what those emails proved, that they were saying, hey, we have to get our friends in the media to do a hit piece on these doctors and make them look like crazies, because now they even have Nobel Prize winners that are signing on to it. So that got revealed. So of course, but nobody knows this stuff, right? Because it doesn't get amplified in the media. Why? Because $100 billion not only buys you the government, but it buys you the media. Right. So people have no idea how corrupt. That's why they could lie about ivermectin and make you think that a medicine that has saved literal billions of lives, that won the Nobel Prize, it's on the WHO list of essential medicines. They could all make you think of some kind of horse paste.
But
Right?
and can I interrupt you? Because if you listen to the corporate press, you would get the impression that Joe Rogan put on sunglasses and a trench coat and a hat. He went to a pet store. He got some vials of horse paste. It's like, are you Joe Rogan? No, just ring me up. As if he wasn't taking medication under medical supervision of experts, listen to the experts, and as if that was the only thing he was taking, and as if it's only used for horses, right? Like, even from that perspective, it's like, why is it horse paste? Why is it dog paste or cat paste? Even on its face, the story was nonsensical. Yet people will tell you, it's to this day, that Joe Rogan injected himself with horse paste because Trump told him to.
Yeah. And by the way, Trump wants credit for the vaccine, and they won't give it to him because that messes up. He's the guy who developed it under warp speed. He wants credit for it. But exactly why do they hate Donald Trump? Because he's bad for their brand, right? That Donald Trump, they can sell more vaccines with Demented Joe than they can with Donald Trump, right? And that's all that is, because they have sufficiently sullied him, right, to be anti-science. So now they can't have that guy be the face of their push to get everybody vaccinated using bullshit science, which is what they used. Right? They suppressed so everything Joe Rogan said was true. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Yeah. And of course I was taking ivermectin too, and people were saying the same thing about me. And they're like, I get my ivermectin at Walgreens. And they're like, what? And what do you get it for? I go, because I'm in a study of how to treat people who are vaccine injured. I got injured by the vaccine, and this is a human medicine that is considered a wonder drug before COVID, and they're going to see if it works on this. And the fact that people had an emotional, why do you give a fuck about what medicine my doctor prescribed for me? Why does someone else have an opinion on that? Because they've been propagandized to have an opinion about that and have an emotional attachment to it, because that's their way to own Trumpers. Right. Go ahead.
The other thing is, like, they were laughing when Herman Cain died, as a result of COVID, because he had been vaccine hesitant. But it's like Joe Rogan took these medications and he was back to work. So what do you
not only was he back to work, he tested negative for the fucking virus in 48 hours. 48 hours.
Right. So
you can't do that.
That it was pointless. Worst case scenario. It's not like it made it worse.
So that's just propaganda. Well, you saw when he got Dr. Sanjay Gupta on his show, first thing he got to first thing he had to do was school Dr. Sanjay Gupta on natural immunity. Do you remember that?
Yes, of course. Sanjay Gupta, it doesn't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, and Gupta goes, well, Joe, you had it, you got over it, now you should get your vaccine. And Joe goes, why should I get a vaccine? I have natural immunity. And he goes, oh, but the vaccine, and so doctors all of a sudden during COVID decided to pretend they forgot about how your natural immunity, that's been a thing since the beginning of fucking time, that when you get a virus, your body produces a natural immune response to that virus going forward. And of course you have it now. And so Dr. Sanjay Gupta had to get schooled about that from a pothead comedian on television. And the next thing, Joe Rogan got Dr. Sanjay Gupta to admit that they were all lying about ivermectin at CNN. And he tried to do it with mealy-mouthed words, and Joe didn't let him off the hook. He said, no, they weren't. Because Sanjay Gupta says, "Oh, you seem pretty upset about that." Like somehow Joe's the asshole because he got upset that CNN's lying about him taking ivermectin, and Joe goes, "No, you should be upset about that."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was perfect. I was like, wow, he really handled that. And he go, oh, you're pretty upset about that, huh, Joe? No, you should be upset about that, that your news organization is lying, not only about a medicine, but about a comedian who's taking a med for what purpose? Oh, because he gets bigger in ratings than you. That's why he gets 1,100% more viewers than anything on
Jimmy, they
CNN.
also lied about lying because then they said all we said was ivermectin has one of its uses being horse paste. It's like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You're lying
Why,
to the lie.
why would you even mention that? Would you say penicillin? 80% of antibiotics are used on farms. Would you say penicillin? He's using the cow medicine, but that's what you guys did. And then the FDA even tweeted out, hey, y'all, you're not a horse. Don't take ivermectin. So again, they did. They lied about the lying. So people have no idea that we're living right now, our society, our government, our culture, we're living in an Aldous Huxley / George Orwell fucking scenario. It's not close. There's not parts of our society that are like it. It's 100%. You are completely tracked for 24 hours a day. They not only know what you're watching on TV or what you're looking up on your internet, that they know they know what you're saying in your emails. They have every email, every text, every phone call. You know they have it, right? And they're doing it because of 9/11. And you're not allowed to ask questions anymore. And if you ask questions about the establishment narrative, you are immediately called a white supremacist or a conspiracy theorist. It's the most craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, they'll even do it to black people. Like Larry Elder, when he ran for governor in California, opened up the LA Times headline and said, Larry Elder, white supremacist. And
The black face of white supremacy.
That's it, the black face of white supremacy. And I was like, isn't it just like a black guy to be so sneaky to hide all that white supremacy behind that black skin? They're the worst white supremacists, the black ones.
They're really bad at it.
Yeah. Same thing with the truckers in Canada, right? When I saw the truckers who they were white truckers and black truckers and native truckers and Indian truckers from India with the beard and the thing. And when I saw that, I was like, white supremacists. These have got to be white supremacists.
You know, the first question I was going to ask you, but I think you already answered it for me. I always use you as because a lot of times I have people in my audience who are conservatives, and they basically have this idea that like red pill means conservatives, and I tell them they're absolutely inaccurate. And I use you as an example of someone who I would describe as a red pilled leftist. Would you regard that categorization as accurate?
I don't. Honestly, I don't know. What does that mean? What does a red pill mean?
Red pill is the belief that what is presented as fact by the corporate press is in reality a carefully constructed narrative designed to keep some very unpleasant people in power.
Oh, well, but if that's the definition, then certainly.